So the very notion that you carry is the issue that I'm trying to address through my book. And I'm urging readers to read the references in my book and treat my book primarily as a catalog of those references that I've given with respect to the Bharatiya civilization. Because, pardon me for saying so, your question is historically incorrect. It's factually completely incorrect. To assume that we are a constantly invaded and defeated civilization does such grave factual injustice to the kind of resistance that we have put up, the kind of fight that we have given, and the way we reconquered several portions. I'm sorry, this question is historically baseless, and there is a good reason for this. Each time this discussion happens, the trap that you walk into is by looking at Bharat's experience as an isolated experience, as if we are the only country that has constantly faced invasions and we have had no response mechanisms. The problem with that assumption is twofold. One, look at the number of pre-Christian, pre-Islamic civilizations which have vanished in front of your eyes today, and which have been pushed to extinction over several centuries. Lithuania is perhaps the youngest Christian country, uh, relatively speaking, and even they became Christian perhaps maybe not too far in time, maybe 300 or 400 years ago maximum. And compare that with Bharat, which has retained its non-Christian, non-Hindu character to a significant extent, and we continue to believe that we are invaded, that we are defeated, and that we were easily colonized. Do you really believe that the numbers that we have today in terms of population is because of any lack of effort or intent on the part of the Muslim invader or the Christian colonizer? Is that your understanding of history? Please look at the number of Hindu princely states that Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel had to weave together and put together to create the Indian Union. Look at the number of Hindu princely states that ultimately the British man took the power from. So clearly, at least until the 18th century, I would say until the Battle of Panipat, and even significantly thereafter, that is after 1761, you had reconquered so many areas. Compare that with Africa, compare that with Latin America, compare that with North America, Australia, the rest of the world for that matter, or even for that matter, the rest of Europe. Europe is not a Christian, let's say, Christian civilization at the outset. It has become Christian civilization. Therefore, the very first defeated civilization, the very first conquered civilization, the very first converted civilization is the European civilization, which has completely lost its pre Christian origins, its pre Christian faith systems. Please take a look at what is happening in Lithuania, in Iceland, and so many other countries where they're trying to revive the faith systems which existed prior to Christianity in those parts of the world. They are struggling to do so. Even in Bharat, at the very least, you're close to 800 million, and the entire population of Hindus in the world is 1.1 billion. You're the third largest religion in the world. Take a look at what has happened with the Jews. Look at all these experiences, and you still think of yourself as a defeated society? I'm sorry, that's the problem with the history textbooks today, because it teaches you that you're a defeated society. After the first invasion, or let's say the first major incursion, which is the invasion of Sindh by the Arabs, I think in 711 CE, it took them close to 300 years to cross the Sindh. The frequent invasions and the regularity of invasions started in the, let's say, the late 10th century or the, let's say, early 11th century. And after that, obviously, as a civilization, you have taken some time to respond. But what do you make of the Rajputs? What do you make of the Marathas? What do you make of the Sikhs? Somehow we so selectively celebrate all of them and still continue to believe that we are a defeated civilization. Does nobody teach you how the Dutch Navy lost at the hands of Martanda Varma, the king of Travancore, in the 18th century, the first Asian, let's say, ruler to comprehensively defeat a European navy? Don't we read any of this? That's the problem. I'm sorry, I don't have a problem with you personally, but this question is reflective of the abysmal and disappointing lack of knowledge as far as Bharat's history is concerned. When you look at Bharat in isolation, you will assume that this is some kind of a walk-in and a walkover where everybody's had a walk in the park to simply enter this place. The kind of ruthless resistance that was given even to Alexander. Alexander, forget everybody else. Alexander was given among the toughest resistances that was ever known by the Brahmins and the ladies of that particular region, which you know as the Vahik Pradesh today, which is the Bactrian region. Read this. You have inherited a history and heritage of valor and huge resistance and successful resistance. Entire Spain was under Islamic rule for close to 800 years, after which they had to launch what was known as Reconquista. From the Bharatiya experience, Reconquista has been going on right from the beginning. Ask the Rajasthanis and they'll tell you the proud history of Bappa Rawal, who actually kicked these fellows all the way to Arabia once more. I think this was before the Bin Qasim's invasion of Raja Tahir in Sindh. This was before that. Please read history. Don't jump to these conclusions. What you're taught in your textbooks is rubbish. It's garbage, not even worth being recycled. Read the works of R.C. Majumdar. I keep repeating these names over and over again. Read the works of Jadunath Sarkar. Read the words of Harbila Sarda. Read the works of G.C. Pandey. Read the works of contemporary scholars like Meenakshi Jain, Dr. Meenakshi Jain, or Sitaram Goel, who's written on the Hindu resistance. You are not children of Gandhi, and you're certainly not children of some peace-loving hippie. You have taken forward, or you have inherited a huge tradition of Kshatriya, regardless of what you think of your Varna. So please negate this nonsense from your head. Remove this rubbish from your head. You know nothing about history if this is your question. This is exactly why you need to read the book. To say that your notions of Bharat's history are so buried under what the white man wants us to understand and think of ourselves, that we are a defeated society. What defeated society? Europe today is in shambles. It has no response to the challenge of the Middle East. Bharat has been dealing with this for several centuries now, and it has managed to contain what Europe is unable to contain. Sweden is effectively crumbling as a society as a consequence of illegal migration. Germany doesn't want to talk about the mass rapes that happen in that particular country as a consequence of migration. Paris doesn't want to talk about certain suburbs which are no-go zones for the police anymore. That's exactly what is happening in the so-called West, because they don't know how to handle this creature. We know how to handle this creature. We've been doing so for generations. Please press a delete button, Control Alt Delete, and a permanent delete of this nonsense from your head. Read proper books. I hope you do so, and I hope you never ask this question again, and you stop someone from asking this question again, and shame him for asking this question the next time. This question is not a problem which is personal, but this is a problem that is collective. You have no idea how frustrating and how disappointing it is to hear this question in the age of internet, where source after source, literature after literature is available for people to read, and still they don't read. Where are you getting these opinions from? What is your source? What are you exactly reading that tells you that you're a defeated society? If you're reading the Marxist school of nonsense, their entire goal has been to push you into slavery. Don't read literature written by, I'm sorry to say, Irfan Habib or Rovilar Thapar or R.S. Sharma. They are not worth reading at all under any circumstances. The only reason that you should read them is to understand how paid stooges have effectively brushed Bharat's history under the carpet to the detriment of the civilization. I dare use that language. These people did not have the guts or the courage of the conviction to actually prove their point in the Ram Janmabhoomi case when invited to actually present themselves as expert witnesses, when they kept peddling nonsense and propaganda as opposed to putting forth facts. So please don't read these books. They are not worth reading at all. At the very least, in the age of internet, nobody should have the excuse of saying, I was not aware of this. When you can Google for all sorts of rubbish, please Google on Indian history. Most of the literature is available on archive.org free of charge. The bulk of the literature, at least 30% of the references that I've referred to in my book, we downloaded it from archive.org. Please read them. I say this equally of the history of the North and the South because there is no such thing as the North and the South. Bharat has behaved as one. So I'm sorry for this rant. I'm sure this is going to go viral on YouTube. But this question has opened the floodgates, and that's precisely the rogue that I'm trying to cure through the book. Because generations of historians have been trying to cure this. And I hope to put forth that literature before people to say, कुछ बोलने से पहले पढ़ तो लो. Because you will pass on this very same nonsense to the next generation. Are you telling me that after having converted several continents, the only reason that you are alive today as Hindus is because of the benevolence of the Christian colonizer or the invader? How is that even possible? वो आपको क्यों बख्शेगा जब उसने पूरी दुनिया को बख्शा नहीं है? आप पे क्या कृपा दृष्टि है भाई उसकी, ये मुझे समझा दो. आपको क्यों छोड़ रखा है? Surely you're not related to him. You're not a chacha bhatija, no? So why are you being given this kind of a leeway? That is because you fought back spiritually, politically, culturally, militarily, intellectually. Introspect, where is this question coming from? Is it coming from a position of knowledge? Or is it coming from the darkness of ignorance? If you can honestly come back to, if you can honestly tell yourself, I did not know enough to arrive at this conclusion, I would say that's a fantastic beginning. Then start knowing enough. Start reading. जिस मुद्दे पे सवाल करने की इच्छा है या उस पे बात करने के लिए आप तैयार हैं, फर्स्ट प्रिंसिपल इज उसमें पढ़ना सीखिए और तैयारी करना सीखिए. उसके बाद आप अपने कंक्लूजन्स को प्रेजेंट कीजिए. I'm sorry, this is not meant to be rude to the person who has asked the question. The point is, this is reflective of the massive cancer in the society, especially the Hindu community, and particularly and solely the Hindu community, because I think this is the community that needs a surgical invasive strike. It needs truth bombs on a daily basis. कि तुमने कुछ नहीं पढ़ा है अपनी संस्कृति के बारे में, तो अपनी संस्कृति के बारे में बात करने से पहले मुंह बंद रखो. Others know your history better. Others know your language better. Your Sanskrit is being, let's say, hijacked and monopolized by Westerners with a very clear agenda. Ek din aayega, like Audrey Tushki, when you talk about Sanskrit and your religion, she will get up and her cohorts will get up and say, तुम्हें कुछ नहीं आता, मुंह बंद रखो. हम आपके धर्म के बारे में हम आपसे बेहतर जानते हैं. ये भी एक दिन आएगा, आ चुका है already. I would say our ancestors will regret for having spawned these kind of people, because what they fought for during years of colonization and years of invasions, we are giving it away in so-called independent Bharat. That is the sad reality. The resistance that was alive until 1947 has been snuffed out of the society by the irresponsible paid Nehruvian civilization 100%. Nehruvian civilization, according to me, is a separate civilization. जिनको भारत से कोई ना लगाव है ना जुड़ाव है. Their utter disgust and hatred, they have successfully passed it on through the education system and the language policies of this country. आप अपने आप को इस रोग से मुक्त कीजिए किसी भी हालत में. Start reading the literature, at least in your mother tongues, man. Your ancestors have written in Tamil, Telugu, in Assamese, Bengali, in so many languages. At the very least, read that literature. एक single sentence आप string नहीं कर पाते हैं अपनी मातृभाषा में, despite having the best of resources, and you think you actually have the standing to point fingers at your ancestors who have not just withstood but have successfully repelled the invader. And again, not to be personal, but कुछ तो शर्म करनी चाहिए हमें. They died and they fought to protect this civilizational space, to protect this Punya Bhumi, not as a territory, but as a Bhumi where our ancestors are worshipped and our gods are worshipped with sticks, with broomsticks, with vessels and utensils. The Brahmins fought Alexander, the so-called conqueror, who was stopped in his tracks in the one country that he could not defeat, which is Bharat. In which other country did his soldiers say, I don't want to go to this place because I don't think we can fight that army? That was their reaction. This is not entire Bharat's army. He is talking of one Janapad, which is Magad. One Janapad's army is capable of instilling diffidence in the so-called world-conquering force, which is Alexander's army, who had defeated Darius's Persia, who had finished all the way from Middle East Babylon. He's coming here and he's stopped in his tracks here. And you think you've inherited a legacy of defeatism. You may not respect yourself, but please respect your ancestors. They did a stupendous job of protecting this country. That's why we are able to come up with this nonsense.